Bit about me. I just graduated 2 weeks ago. Uh, yay! Uh, from my undergrad in CS and journalism at Princeton. And my news background is I previously took a year in the middle school during COVID and to work for the BBC Africa Eye as investigative journalists. We made a lot of documentaries on authoritarian regimes and regions and did some investigations. And I almost dropped out of school to move to London and work full time, but ended up going back. And now we're still here. So, yeah. So to start on the GPT Zero journey, I'm going to start with a quote from one of my writing professors, John McPhee, who's 92 now. And I took his writing class last year. He taught it at Princeton. He was teaching the same writing class for over 45 years. And I just remember kind of like the end of this year was half in person, half during COVID, and I was the only computer science major in that entire classroom. And he was just going, "Hey, Edward, I don't know about the Zoom thing and the computer stuff on Zoom. Can you help me out a little bit?" I was like, "Yeah, of course." And it was that kind of intersection and shift between journalism into the new technological world we're entering. And it was really apparent to me that everyone, and I think I learned from the writing classes and not just being a computer science major, that everyone writes uniquely. I think if I only took one of those classes, I wouldn't be here. And what's really special about this event is you get that immersions of both journalists and also engineers. He likes to say that no one will ever write in just the way you do. Definitely believe that. And I think there is value in preserving the skills to write for a long, long time. I would say how this started is that this was an app that I put out in January and definitely went viral on just AI detection. Since now we have over 1.4 million registered users on our site, so this has gotten a lot bigger than what I could have ever imagined. Um, Maybe here's like a traction from the first 2 months of everything we were doing, um, and then um, and then it brings us to here. And so I was not planning on doing this full time, but now we are, and we're gonna keep on building some AI detection products and some things that I haven't in the pipeline that we haven't shared with anyone that I'll share today too. Cool. To kind of go back to the motivations, when I was spending that year at the BBC, we were looking a lot at, you can imagine back in 2020 or so, election interference. And you can imagine the top of the topics there were bots on Facebook and Twitter. And already then they were proliferating. And already then AI was involved in terms of AI generated Facebook profiles, AI generated images, and now we're imagined with the advent of Chat GPT, these bots can chat, and that definitely like scared the shit out of me in like January. And we were like, okay, we got to keep on working on some of these tools for detection. So I would say this problem is not new. It's definitely starting very early, or even before 2020 or so. Um, and then this was really cool. I always like this slide because some of the work with during that year was you can detect some things without any fancy models or so, like simply for these images generated by StyleGAN 3, which is probably the most popular image generation model in 2021. People notice that there's something unique about, you can like find the truth by looking into the eyes, because the pupils will generate it at the same exact location, and that's how StyleGAN 3 started generating. Obviously, there's a lot of new models, Stable Diffusion, Midjourney nowadays, and there's new detection methods for them. Um, but that's interesting to think, because in this cat and mouse game, it's not all technology. Sometimes there's just very simple things that most popular models out there can be detected by. So I would say, okay, um, another problem we're facing and encountering is the fact that AI generated text, as you know, is prone to spitting out articles, it's hallucinating facts. So I'd say definitely something to be cautious about as some newsrooms consider integrating AI technologies. The other thing is with NewsYard, was releasing a few studies that we were, kind of closely involved with some folks and friends there, both on ChatGPT spreading misinformation, which is obviously of concern throughout even before ChatGPT, but also in terms of more news farms, what we wouldn't call journalism, but more journalism, um, spreading out a lot of and pumping a lot of articles that are now possibly AI generated, and we can show you some numbers there. Okay, maybe on in terms of this is moving to the solutions part. So the first layer is detection. And this is what's already been out there. This is what, we put up an immediate app in January because we thought there was like a need and a demand. And I think what's been the situation in January has evolved a lot and is no longer the situation in June. But in terms of detection, what that looks like for us and what we always want to keep out there for journalists or even consumers of news and everybody is just like a base layer detection. For us, that looks like a Chrome extension called Origin by GPT Zero, which is free to use. So feel free to try it today and give me some feedback. But what's interesting is to think about for detection. I think there's two critical points as we think about this space forward. One is most of the players or the players that I guess were just like kind of GPT Zero started this space and everybody else. There's a lot of these detection apps. A lot of them are taking research from academia and just like plugging and playing in house without their own research and development. I think this is actually a space where academia and academic models are not meant for industry use cases. And detection actually needs an investment to be good because there's so many people investing so much money in the generation side of building better and better models. And I think the same needs to be true for detection. It's actually a space where you actually need to have more and more data in terms of training models for detection as well. So a lot of it is in a sense the cat and mouse game here, and a lot of the cats are just plug and playing academic models. And I think it's a unique opportunity for us to step in and put uh, kind of the resources where words with that and work on the detection space and the research side. Two is I would say detection in itself is one layer, and it's not the only layer. So what we're working on, and okay, so this is still detection. When I talked about numbers, there was a recent study these guys put out identifying 49 news sites that were pumping out AI generated articles. And they did this by just using GPT Zero to check for a lot of these news sites. And yeah, this was like, wow, okay, so this is real. It's not like kind of suddenly going to change everything, but there is like a growing journalism method with AI content here. I would also say the other thing I was going to mention for detection is in different use cases. There's kind of almost like layers for how sensitive these models could be to AI content. So a use case for journalism versus editorial versus education would look very different. So we have to be a lot more mindful on what models we put out for what use cases in terms of detection capabilities. Generation. Okay, so I think this is what we're really interested in. Like, how do we prove? So, in addition to the detection layer, filtering out what's AI that we consume, how do we prove what you write is human? And where is the value in that? Is there value in that? What we built out, and this is actually the first time I'm showing this to people, actually, which is really exciting, is kind of a verification in terms of you wrote something. This is 100% like something you wrote in terms of it could be as simple as you typed everything. And then we're building out the integration with if there's copy and pastes to detect certain like paragraphs or so as you iteratively write. and then you get a proof of, hey, this is something you wrote. I think the questions here, and would love to talk to everybody to get feedback, is one is what platforms is this tool useful for? Is it articles, blogs that people write? Is it on things like Google Doc and Word? Is it on Medium and Substack? Is it on what you submit to a journalism use case? Is it on emails? Do people want to verify that the email they wrote is human? Is it on messages that you text to your loved ones or friends? So that's very interesting to us. And two is what verticals this verification is useful for, in terms of like what verticals and like uh, has people that care that I wrote this as a human and not a machine. And I think that is digging really deep to the core question and existential crisis we're all facing too. And I think there is a lot of value, and people should care, obviously, in journalism, education, and we're also thinking through verticals in governments as well as legals, people drafting like literal legal documents, and whether the end consumers that information want some sort of verification that a human wrote it. Finding out the origins of the text we consume and the information we consume. So what this is going to look like for us as a next step is, you probably heard of reverse image searches, in terms of you have an image on the internet and you find where else has it proliferated. We want to also enable reverse text searches, in terms of you have a text you find on the internet and you take origin, for example, or some sort of product, and scan, highlight it, right click, scan it, and see the sources of where else it's proliferated on the internet, and almost find the first instances. And then we can identify if the first instance was credible, was human written, was AI generated. I think there's a lot of value in finding the provenance. Um, and in this, the motivation is almost combining one and two, combining the detection and also combining the generation and where things were generated and finding the source. So that is definitely the long-term vision here. Yeah, I'll end with a photo of our team. So recently, and when we launched Origin, we got to go to New York and meet Mark, who is previously the CEO of the New York Times and the BBC. So I was like, okay, double the fun here. And we just demoed and had a lot of fun, and got his feedback on our products and where he thought this could have value towards the journalism industry and support journalists. And we'd love to do the same here as well. And so on the joining our team, this means literal sense, where we're hiring now engineers, and also business people, but also I would say it's more of getting your feedback and staying in touch throughout this process, and informing what we build and how it can support journalism. Contact info.